Though it was ravaged by fire just over 4 years ago, Notre Dame Cathedral remains one of the most popular sightseeing destinations in all of Paris. While most of the cathedral is still off limits to visitors, workers are on track to complete reconstruction by the end of 2024, and that includes replacing the 19th century spire that towered over Paris for 150 years. As Elaine Cobb shows us, that work is being done nearly 200 miles away from the City of Lights.
Deep in the French countryside, an iconic part of Notre Dame is once again taking shape as a crane lowers another piece of the puzzle in what will soon be a 300-foot spire, in the presence of the man in charge of the project, General Jean-Louis Georgelin.
It's a very emotional time, because the reconstruction of the spire is the key phase of the reconstruction of the cathedrals since the fire.
4 years ago, the world looked on in horror as Notre Dame was engulfed in flames. The cathedral's iconic spire, made of oak and metal, was swallowed by the blaze. Astonishingly, most of the church survived, but the 19th century spire was destroyed. Now, teams of artisans measure, saw and chisel centuries-old oak to rebuild it to its original design, combining the methods of the past with the tools of today. Architect Axel Poncenet has been working on the reconstruction for 2 years.
The tools are just replacing the hands, but the knowledge is still the same, and it's still a traditional way of building. We couldn't rebuild it without studying this past knowledge.
The timber came from forests across France. Only the tallest oak trees, at least 100 years old, were chosen. Now, 285 pieces of that wood have been assembled in complex patterns to form the shaft. The architects call this the heart of the spire. In the next few weeks, it will be taken to Paris and placed on the roof of the cathedral, as shown to CBS 60 Minutes.
The spire will be there.
General Georgelin is confident Notre Dame will be ready to reopen to the public in 2024, as promised. Work on the spire continues until the end of this year, when it's expected to soar again into the Paris skyline. For CBS Saturday Morning, Elaine Cobb, Briey, France.
It's been nearly 5 years since a fire destroyed Paris's Notre Dame Cathedral. 2 days after the fire, French President Emmanuel Macron set a 5-year deadline to rebuild the 800-year-old landmark. That goal is close to being met, thanks to a nearly $1 billion reconstruction effort, which includes the work of an American craftsman. Elaine Cobb has his story.
Last year, Hank Silver was running a small carpentry business in Massachusetts. Through a contact in France, he was offered a rare chance to join a team in Normandy preparing timber to rebuild the nave of Notre Dame.
I could not say no to that opportunity. It's an opportunity that happens once in a lifetime, wouldn't even be the right term. It's once in a millennium, really.
The monumental task of restoring Notre Dame after the 2019 fire called for artisans skilled in traditional building methods.
We first hewed all the logs using axes in order to recreate that rippled finish that you were able to see in the original cathedral in the 13th century framing.
There were unexpected challenges.
The architects asked us to reproduce all of the deformations that had accrued over 800 years. So the ridge is not a straight line, and so we had to follow this curvature.
Then he came to Paris to set the timber trusses in place.
Many carpenters came from United States, from England, from Denmark, from Spain, because they were fond of these techniques, fond of oak. They come to work on Notre Dame, and it's a very fantastic spirit.
There's still a lot of work left to be done to restore Notre Dame to its former glory, but everyone here is confident it will be ready for the planned reopening in December. 4 months ago, the spire rose again into the Paris skyline, topped with a recreation of the original gold cross and rooster. The rooster holds several holy relics, but they
created a second chamber, and it's got a scroll with the names of everybody who worked on the cathedral.
Oh wow, is there names in there?
Yeah. Isn't that cool?
That is supremely
Yeah,
cool.
it's right up there,
Okay.
protecting the city.
With his work on the restoration almost done, Silver says he'd like to stay in France. He took advantage of a site visit by the French president to plead his case.
I did hand Emmanuel Macron a letter requesting French citizenship. He has not been texting me every day, much to my disappointment.
Hank Silver remains hopeful and says he's looking forward to seeing Notre Dame reopen at the end of this year. For CBS Saturday Morning, Elaine Cobb, Paris.
We've got to get Hank Silver his French citizenship.
It is amazing that they're reproducing the deformation.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Like all the things that sort of
Made it-
became
Made
this
it,
shape
right.
over
Yes.
800 years, they have to recreate that part of it. That's so cool.
Fantastic.
Very cool.
So cool.
Yeah.
It's been 5 years since the fire that ravaged Notre Dame in Paris. The blaze destroyed the roof and spire of the cathedral and shocked people around the world, but work continues to restore it to its former glory. Elaine Cobb visited the ironworks in Normandy, where they repaired the cross.
As the blaze engulfed Notre Dame, the iconic spire and the roof made of wood and metal were lost. Astonishingly, though, some of the famous ornaments from the church survived the fire. Among them, the 40-foot-high decorative metal cross that sat atop the lead roof of the choir at the back of the cathedral. As the flames consumed the roof, the cross, which weighs more than 3,300 pounds, fell onto the stone vaults of the choir. So while the metal was damaged, the cross did not melt.
The cross fell really early in the fire, so we were really lucky because the cross didn't burn a lot, and she fell just it's a miracle.
Vincent Combe is in charge of the restoration of the metal and lead roofs of the cathedral. The cross was taken to this ironworks in Normandy for the complex and delicate repairs. Architect Axel Poncenet was involved in checking it could be repaired to the original 19th century design by Eugène Viollet-le-Duc.
We were really happy to discover that we would be able to use it and forge it again and work with the metal that was here, because the cross was designed by Viollet-le-Duc, so it's a very important piece of Notre Dame.
Earlier this month, the cross was raised again at the workshop to allow the artisans complete the finishing touches, including the lead coverings and gold leaf and the symbolic dragon eating its own tail.
We have a lot of affection for this dragon because we will put again on the sky of Paris roof. So we have lots of animals. We have dragon, we have also dragon on the roof.
For Philippe Jost, in charge of the restoration project, it was an emotional moment.
It's one of these beautiful moments of the restoration of Notre Dame, because all the woodwork has disappeared, and it was possible to restore the cross. It was not easy.
The cross has now been restored to its former splendor and is back where it belongs, on Notre Dame. For CBS Saturday Morning, Elaine Cobb, Paris.
Absolutely beautiful.
I was just there, and I got to see the
Yeah.
construction work going on, and it's amazing. In 5 years, they're on schedule, right? Like all that's been accomplished just in these past, and how complicated everything has been.
Yeah.
Really cool.
A 14th century statue of the Virgin Mary was paraded through Paris yesterday evening as the precious ornament made its way back to its place in the city's historic Notre Dame Cathedral. The 6-foot-high statue was undamaged by the fire that devastated the cathedral in 2019 and is the first to be returned to the landmark. Ahead of the church's opening in December, Elaine Cobb has been taking a look at the years of work that's gone into its restoration.
As the flames engulfed Notre Dame Cathedral in April 2019, horrified onlookers feared the iconic Paris landmark would be lost forever. But now the 12th century church has risen from the ashes of that catastrophic fire. It's taken 5.5 years of tireless work by an army of architects, engineers and artisans to restore the historic cathedral to its former glory. French President Emmanuel Macron shot down ideas of a modern restoration, decreeing the landmark would be reconstructed as it had stood before, including elements from the 1800s.
The spire and the roof behind me had to be completely rebuilt, but to the exact 19th century design by Viollet-le-Duc.
Century-old oak trees were felled across France to replace the destroyed forest of the cathedral roof. American carpenter Hank Silver was among the teams who worked on them.
In our shop in Normandy, we received about 600 oak logs, and it was all freshly cut oak, which is, as it was done traditionally, you work with green wood, unseasoned wood, which is what I'm accustomed to doing in the US as well. And so we first hewed all the logs using axes in order to recreate that rippled finish that you were able to see in the original cathedral in the 13th century framing.
The framework for the iconic spire was carefully constructed in eastern France, then erected on top of the cathedral in Paris earlier this year. Astonishingly, some treasured ornaments survived the fire, including the 40-foot-high decorative metal cross that sat atop the back of the cathedral. It is now back in its original place on the roof of the choir. Architect Axel Poncenet was involved in checking it could be repaired.
And we were really happy to discover that we would be able to use it and forge it again. So it's a very important piece of Notre Dame.
Bells from the North Tower also survived the blaze, but had to be taken out because the wooden belfry was in danger of collapsing. They were taken to Normandy to be cleaned, then returned to ring out once again at the reopening. For the rector of Notre Dame, Monsignor Olivier Ribaud-Dumas, Paris has been strangely quiet without the bells.
So it's something very important, and it's something that is in the atmosphere, in the ambient of the cathedral.
Along with the old, there is something new. Improved fire safety measures, the fruit of extensive testing, to ensure a fire like that can't happen again and that Notre Dame can continue to dominate the Paris skyline. For CBS Saturday Morning, Elaine Cobb, Paris.
And it's interesting, they also have a surplus of money in case there is work that needs to be done as well. I read about the bells. There are 8 bells. They all have names. Gabriel is the heaviest at 8,800 pounds, over 8,800 pounds. I think it's Jean-Marie might be the lightest at 1,700.
Such a beloved. I still can't believe how much money was raised, literally within weeks of the fire, but good for them.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. December 7th when it reopens and the public can go back there.
Just in time for my birthday. How about that?
We'll send you over there.
Hey, I like that.